And what's up, everyone? I'm Phritzy, and this is me talking to myself. What is me talking to myself? What is it? That's a weird question. Well, it's essentially me speaking in journal form. Instead of writing in a journal, sharing my thoughts, positive or negative, I speak it out loud and post it on the internet. Why? Well, because I've had this major issue of getting in my own way, and I promised myself I needed to figure out a way to kind of thicken up my skin, if you will. And this is the way I know, the only way I kind of knew how, and I've decided to make 100. I think this is number 13. I'm just guessing because I actually didn't look up the last one, but here we are. So yeah, sometimes I can be positive, sometimes I can be negative, and today I feel shitty. Why do I feel shitty? Because I'm burnt out. Now, I'm not burnt out because of this, because I'm only on episode 12 or 13. This is fine. This is actually not that difficult for me, but I'm burnt out from my own kind of day job, the thing that pays my bills. And there's nothing wrong with the job in particular, but I find sometimes, I think it, for me, I seem to do one of two things. I either will want to go after something and then I kind of shoot myself in the foot or stop before I even really get started, or I do the opposite and I burn myself out to the point that I get myself super sick. This week I ended up getting myself pretty sick. And I find I often ignore the signs. So for me, if I look back over the last 2 weeks, not including this week, but 2 weeks prior, I had a lot of days where I'd wake up and I just did not feel like going to work. Now, I don't love my job, but I enjoy it. For the most part, there are some issues I have with it, but for the most part, once I kind of get to work, I sort of flip a switch and I'm good. And I do like hard work. I do like getting to the end of the day feeling like, yeah, I earned my paycheck. I made a difference. Even if it's not a difference in the world, it's, I feel like I put effort out and I received some kind of satisfaction on a hard day's work. But I found myself, I think, on 3 occasions where I thought to myself, like as I woke up, what are the consequences of not showing up to work today? Now, context, I'm the kind of person that will show up often 30 minutes early, if not earlier, to my job. I hardly call in sick, and if I do, it's typically I'll give a lot of notice, and I'm oftentimes just showing up to work sick because, well, part of it is when you're paid by the hour like I am, you don't have an option. The other thing is you don't want to screw over your team. It depends on the type of work environment you have, but for me, it's not something I can readily do. But I felt those thoughts. I had those thoughts, but I just kind of dug in and I was like, I'm going to just keep doing this. And then last weekend I had my baby shower because I'm having a kid soon, and it turned out really well. Like, people showed up. It was really exciting. And by the way, baby showers are incredibly practical. Like, holy crap. I'm not actually sure why, excuse me, a little bit thirsty there. I'm not sure why there's not a lot of fathers that go to baby showers. Like, this one actually had quite a few guys, but as a kid, I never went to a baby shower. In fact, I've never gone to a baby shower except for my own. And I've mentioned it to other people, and they're like, oh yeah, it's typically more for women. I'm like, why? Like, I understand that the mother carries the kid. So there's definitely a bigger emphasis on, the mother did a lot of work for 9 months, and she's going to continue to do a lot of work. But I think in this modern age, as to be honest, not even just women wanting men to come and help out at home. I think men actually want to help out at home. I know for sure I do. I actually value the idea of being part of my kid's life and helping my wife. Even looking a little bit further, we might even get to the point where I stay home and my wife works once, her body's healed. And there's some other variables we'll have to figure out, but it's like she has a career that she already wants to pursue, and I don't want to get in the way of that. Anyway, it was kind of a tangent all on its own. I like doing a baby shower. It was great. A lot of practical stuff to it. I should talk more on a different day for that. But the whole weekend, my wife and I just worked our butts off to make sure it was right. And then beforehand, we were working our butts off to make sure it was good. And she worked her absolute ass off. And God, by the middle of the Sunday is when we had the baby shower, I started feeling like this soreness in my throat. And I just kept pushing myself because, I want to be a good host. And by the time it was done, I said to my wife, I'm like, I think I'm sick. I think I caught something. There's sometimes when you get sick, it's inevitable to a degree depending on the circumstance. But I feel like if I was slightly more strategic and kind of paced myself over the last, say, month in terms of my day job and such, not so much this, I would probably, my immune system would have been high enough to kind of fight off whatever sickness was going around. Or at least I wouldn't have been feeling like garbage for the entire week. And I didn't do that. And I seem to do this to myself a lot. And it's like this struggling with these mental blocks of not wanting to push myself to present myself to the world, doing this kind of stuff, doing other YouTube stuff, going and doing auditions for acting and all these other things, overthinking that. So not pushing myself hard enough or not working hard enough at this stuff, yet working my ass off way too much on something that is not a career. And this is not the first time I've done it. This has happened to me many, 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 many times. In fact, when I quit my previous job to start doing YouTube, to kind of take the leap, some of this goes into me being overly accommodating to people, and I need to stop that. But I call my boss to tell him that I'm resigning, and I feel, well, I'm the manager, so I should give him more than 2 weeks. So I give him a month, which is a lot of time. I probably only needed to give him 3 weeks. Really, I only needed to give 2 weeks. I think 3 weeks would have been fair, but I gave him a whole month. And then he said to me that he was out in France for some vacation. I was like, okay, well, I'll give you another 2 weeks. Oh, I guess the one good thing that came from me working the extra month and a half was I was inspired to write my first video, which was a video on Cuphead, on perseverance, because during that month and a half, I had to deal with firing somebody, which, was good, but we were low on a person. Then we had somebody who was really sick and they were out, and then there were some other people who were sick. So I was working these 12 to 14 hour shifts almost every single day, just nonstop. And so I ended up working maybe harder that last month and a half than I did. Actually, no, that job I worked my ass off. But I pushed myself. You can't say that I didn't work my ass off till the very end with that job. My God, I put my heart and soul into it. To the point that I was probably on week 3, and I got this splitting headache, and I was like, oh, this is fine. And I just took some Advil or Tylenol or something, and it got so bad. It was like this screaming in my head, and I had to sit down. And here's the funny thing. I was already popping probably 2 Advil every 4 hours every single day, which is probably super unhealthy. I remember my wife, she would see me take Advil and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, yeah, I'm just preparing for the day, because I had such a caffeine addiction, because I needed the caffeine to kind of move forward and to kind of step into the day and show a smiley face and really do my best. Yet I needed the Advil because I was so beyond burnt out that I don't know, my body was screaming at me. It was like, you're a fucking idiot. You're killing yourself, dude. Anyway, I think I got to I managed to somehow push through that week 3, and I got to week 4, even with all those headaches. And I had this day where everything was falling apart. It was like me and I think 2 other people working for the entire day for 14 hours, which is ridiculous. And I remember sitting in the back, and I was like, what do I do? And I just got the idea of perseverance. So I used that for my first video for a game called Cuphead, and that game is a very punishing game. So it was great for me to have some content for my first video, but my God, I basically killed myself. I got so sick that I actually couldn't show up to my last 2 days of work, and my boss, he was there, and I was like, I'm out. Like, I know that's not something a lot of people, when they quit their jobs, is like, don't want to show up for their last day or 2, or they kind of slack off. That's not my personality, but I was so sick, and I wasn't just, once I quit, I was planning on making YouTube videos from week 1, maybe take a couple days, and then, at the very least, start on week 2. I could not make a video for a month and a half because I was in bed sick. It was that bad. So it's a major problem I have, and I have not. If you're coming here and you see, like, I'm probably already coming up with a title, something about struggling with burnout or something like that. If you click on this thinking I'm going to give you advice, I don't have it. I'm kind of figuring it out for myself. But it's definitely, as I continue to make these videos, it's good to kind of realize that I have a major issue with burnout. I have a major issue with pacing myself and putting priority on the wrong thing, putting priority on something that doesn't need a priority, and self-sabotaging on things that really should take 100% of my effort. Like these. And other creative sort of outlets, if you will. So I guess I'm got to the end of this week and I at least when I got home, I would sleep at least 10 hours every night, which was good. Last night I slept 12 hours and I was still sick. The only unfortunate thing is I wasn't able to take proper sick days. I probably should have, but the job doesn't give sick days. So I still pushed through, which means this weekend I had all these ideas of doing, I'm going to clean the house, I'm going to do all this stuff. It's like none of it. The best I can do is sit here and talk. At least this doesn't take, it's not emotionally or mentally taxing. So I can show up for that, which is great. But I can't do anything more. Actually, one thing I was proud of myself on this week, one thing I was super proud of myself is on Monday after the baby shower stuff, and I was like, I'm super sick. My wife said to me, promise me tomorrow if you're not feeling well, you'll call in sick. And I said, okay, I promise. But in the back of my head, I'm like, no, I'm going to just push through. And then the next morning I woke up and I was feeling like crap. And I just, I had my wife's voice in my head and she's telling me, and it wasn't about listening to my wife, though you should, but unless she's telling you to do something terrible, then don't. Anyway, it wasn't about that. It was because she was saying it out of not to control me. She was saying it because, like, Phil, I care about you. You were burning yourself out. Take a day for yourself. And I was like, yeah, I should take care of myself. So I called in. And that was that. And then I slept the rest of the day. But what I've had a tendency to do in the past is if I take a sick day, I wait until I'm absolutely, like, disgustingly sick. Like, it's nasty snot. It's like, I could go into all this detail of like how gross I can get to show that I'm so sick so that you don't judge me. And, I thought to myself, fuck the people who judge you for when you're sick. Now, to be fair, if you're someone who chronically calls in sick, well, fuck you. Don't do that. That's bullshit. Like, you suck. But for the rest of us, why do we need to prove it? If you're calling in sick once every 6 months, even once every 3 months, but once every 6 months, you don't need to tell anybody why. You don't need to prove it. If you feel sick, take that day. So I did, and I felt good about it. And I didn't justify it to anybody at work. I was like, I'm sick, and I'm not going to apologize. So I feel like there was a little bit of growth, just a teeny bit for myself. So yeah, I guess a positive note. I called in sick and didn't feel bad about it or justify it to anybody. Hope you all have a great night. Peace.